Zoom at 8. My name is Julianne Peterson, and I am your host for Zoom at 8 every Tuesday night. You know, we've been doing this for over 4 years, and we've been helping people introduce them, help them learn from industry experts in this live conversation, and then network. I mean, network with real people. You don't even need to leave the comfort of your home. You don't have to pay for any TV, or I'm sorry, a plane fare. You don't have to pay for hotels. This is the place to be. We're building relationships, and you know what? We've closed over $200 million in assets just in this small little group. So it's the place to be every Tuesday night. I am also a loan officer for Old Capital Lending. We've been doing business for 38 years. So we are specialists in multifamily, but we will look at other asset classes. You know, if you're developing something, you're looking for land, you've got retail, you got office, we can help you with all of those, mobile home parks, any of them. But what we're here really to do is to help you build your network, build your group, your Rolodex. Okay. So if you have a deal you're looking at, I would love to earn your respect and your place as your financing person. Remember, you don't need to do business with someone you know, like, and trust. So I'd like to work towards that. We're going to look for your T12, your rent roll, your underwriting. If there's an OM, an offering memorandum, we'd like to have that as well. So we'll run the numbers for you and show you exactly how to underwrite this. You know, it's so amazing to me how many times I see other lenders, other brokers who underwrite the deals, and I compare them to how our lenders are running them, and they're using the wrong metrics. They're saying we're going to give you 75%, and they're using the old insurance, they're using the old payroll, they're using old taxes. So be very, very careful when you're choosing to work with a lender. Okay. I am excited about tonight, as I say many times on Zoom at 8, but tonight I'm very excited because this person that we're going to meet with tonight, he's a little bit in the news right now, and I'm excited because he is such a transparent person, and I want you to see how he's running his business, how he started, what he's under the gun maybe a little bit right now, and how he can help you understand what the market is that he's seeing. So tonight we have a live conversation with our industry expert, Zach Haptonstall. Zach is located typically he's in Phoenix. Tonight he's in Dallas. And he is the CEO and co-founder of Rise48 Equity. He has grown this company to 1.8 billion in total transactions in just 4 years. Young guy, guys, it is possible. So being the CEO and co-founder of the Equity and the Rise48 communities, he is a retail syndication multifamily investment company with offices in Phoenix, Arizona, and now in Dallas. His main responsibilities as CEO include overseeing all acquisitions, sourcing capital, and building strategic partnerships. So we are tonight going to unleash the power of multifamily investments with Zach Haptonstall. I'm excited. Welcome to Zoom at 8. Where are you? There you are. Zach, good evening.
Good evening, Julie. No, thanks so much for having us on. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to it and hoping to provide value to everybody here. So yeah, happy to be on the Zoom at 8 call.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, if everybody would be so kind, go up to the right-hand side and go to speaker view. There's 9 little dots. Just reach out and click on that. And now you've got the speaker view. I'm probably there. Now, once Zach says something, you'll see him. So here's what I would like everybody to do. Get close to their computer. How many of you have heard of Zach Haptonstall? Can you put number 1 in the chat so that we can see who has seen or knows Zach Haptonstall? Number 1. If you have never heard,
for better or for worse, right, Julie?
For better or for worse.
Yeah.
If you've never heard of Zach Haptonstall, Give us a 2. And you're going to be living under a rock after tonight. Look at that, Derek Lund. Derek, I'm so glad you're here because this is going to be a great night. All right. Well, I'm glad because listen, Zach has been doing this for 4 years, a little over the 4 years. And Zach has quite a story. So let's get to know you. Let's hear about a little bit about yourself. We know that you are the CEO, but where did this all start? So you're living in Phoenix. Tell us a little bit about your family, your mom and dad, brothers, sisters. Tell us, you know, did you come from a family that was investors? Was it your dad who did any finance? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, good question, Julie. And yeah, it's been 5.5 years now since I've set out on this journey full time, but it took over a year to even get the first deal. So I think a lot of people think it's shorter, but yeah. So a little bit about me. So, you know, I'm Zach. I was born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona. Just grew up in like a lower middle class family. So no, my parents were not investors. I don't have any family money, no real estate family. My dad worked as like a exterior painter for like a construction company for like 16 years. My mom worked as like, you know, an HR admin. So yeah, nothing too crazy. Just kind of grew up in this lower middle class family. And probably like most of you, you know, was taught, you know, you go to school, get good grades, get a degree, and then you get a good job. And that's kind of, you know, what the focus was. And so, you know, I had a football scholarship out of high school, Julie. So I went to play Division II football in Colorado for a year. Then I wanted to go to D1. So I went to junior college, back to Phoenix. I had another scholarship. And I realized I'm not good enough or big enough to go to the NFL. It's probably not going to happen. You know, I was like an undersized offensive lineman. And so just had to run my head into people to get by. So I was like, well, I really like sports and I want to be a journalist. I want to be like a sports reporter. So I got a journalism degree at the Walter Cronkite School at Arizona State, which is, you know, one of the top journalism schools in the country. And I was a live news anchor, sports reporter for Arizona PBS for a short time, hosted a show on Fox Sports Network Arizona. So that was really cool at first. You know, always got good grades, just tried to grind it out. You know, that was really important to me to kind of, I think I took the whole athlete mindset and applied it to school, you know, and had really good grades, always tried to be disciplined, took pride in that. And then I realized quickly after that, after I graduated, I was like, man, I don't even like doing this. Like, it's not actually what I wanted to do. And at first it was cool, like being on TV, like the adrenaline of live TV. And it was tough, honestly, because I grew up, I was always an introvert. Okay. I was not a social person, you know, really insecure, introverted. And I think the whole journalism thing forced me to come out of my comfort zone and kind of put yourself, you know, out there. And it's not like anybody actually watches Arizona PBS, but it's just knowing that you're on like these news, you're on people's TV, you know what I mean? And you could watch it if you ever accidentally stumbled upon that channel. And so that really helped me. And then I realized, okay, I don't even want to do this. Like, this sucks. Like, I guess if you don't make hardly any money, I had to put myself through school. So I was working like 40, 50 hours a week, nights and weekends, delivering medical equipment. And I had school loans, right, to go to ASU. And so when I graduated, I had all this student debt. And I was like, I don't want to do journalism. I need to make money. Like, I need to figure out how to pay off my debt, get financially established. And I remember this is like my freshman or sophomore year of college. And I graduated, I was kind of younger. I graduated high school when I was 17. I started freshman when I was 17. So I think I was like 18 and I read the Dave Ramsey book, right? And so all about, you know, killing debt, being disciplined, financial freedom, getting rid of debt. And so I was like, man, I don't like having all this student debt. I'm the one having to pay it. You know, I was living on my own in an apartment. I needed to make money. So I was delivering medical equipment. I talked to my then boss and he's like, hey, you can make good money doing healthcare marketing. I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. Like, screw journalism. I need to make money. So of all things, I went into hospice marketing. Okay. So those of you who aren't familiar with hospice basically provides end of life care, like mobile nursing, caregiving, supplies, equipment for people who have terminal illnesses. Okay. So I know it sounds weird and depressing, but basically hospice is a Medicare benefit paid for by the federal government, which provides all these free resources for typically geriatric people, older people, to provide these services for them. And most of them are living in their own homes. Okay. It's not like you're at a hospice facility. You're at like it's wherever you live, assisted living, group home, your private home. So anyways, long story short, my job as a hospice marketer was to wake up in the morning, drive all around Phoenix, just walk in cold to places in like hospitals, doctors' offices, assisted livings, and try to build relationships with physicians, nurses, social workers, whoever does the referrals, right? So when they have these patients who have an illness, whether it's heart disease, cancer, COPD, dementia, you name it. I know all the terminal illnesses and all these different degrees. I can read medical records, everything. When they have somebody who needs these services, I'm the first person they call. And so then I meet with the family and the patient in their home or wherever they live. I educate them on the resources, how we can help. And then the goal is to get them signed up for hospice, right? So it sounds really weird. It's a private, these are all private companies. Hospice organizations are private companies that are federally regulated and reimbursed by Medicare. Phoenix is the most competitive hospice market in the country. And so when I say competitive, you're probably like, what the hell? That's weird. Competitive, you're talking about hospice. So it's a very lucrative and competitive private business industry because the Medicare reimbursement is so significant. Okay. And so Phoenix, anyways, there's a bunch of them. And it's kind of the cliches you would think, Julie. It's sunny. There's older people that come to retire. The second most competitive market is Florida. Okay. Just like you would think. So anyways, long story short, I would spend my days getting my teeth kicked in, getting rejected over and over and over, going to places where they don't want marketers in the building.
Now I'm understanding where you're going with this, this detail,
This is
because
outside sales. This is pure
Right.
outside sales. Wake up in the morning. You don't go to an office. You got to go generate referrals. And so it was very two-dimensional. On the one end, you were in a cutthroat competitive sales industry, which, I mean, healthcare is very cutthroat. Okay. There's big insurance companies, there's physicians, there's egos, you name it. And there's all these other marketers around there. Right. And so then when you get the referral, you have to you can't just be like a crappy person. You have to be a good person because you have to meet with the family, hear them out. A lot of times I'm sitting in an ICU and there's 10 family members and this person's about to die. I'm going to sign them up and they die an hour later, or they die the next day. So you're dealing with emotional people. So you have to have this second dimension, which is the human component, where you're almost like a social worker and you have to be able to really connect with these people. And so, yeah, it was an interesting and rewarding experience because what I learned, Julie, is how to read people. Okay. Because I was marketing to people cold all day, every day, just constantly getting rejected. And you're trying to figure out, how do I get past the gatekeeper? How do I get past this secretary? How do I get to the physician to get a second of his time, et cetera? So anyways, you learn a lot of skill set. So long story short, I'm doing that in my early 20s. By the time I'm 23, I'm making 150K a year. Okay. I quickly became, in all humility, like one of the best marketers, if not the best, in Phoenix. And there's hundreds, if not thousands. But we started to dominate. And so, because I was just getting so many referrals, I was just constantly grinding, and I was really good at this. And so basically,
so you did that from 18 to 23. Is that right?
No, I did that from 2013 through 2018.
Right. But you were 18 years
back.
old to 23 years old.
No. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. And I'm sorry. I was 21 to 26.
Okay. All right.
I did this from 21 to 26. So by the time I'm 23, I'm making like 150K a year. I bought a house. I paid off all my debt. I started getting my MBA at night. So I was doing like night school, getting my MBA. So when I was 24, I got my MBA, paid it off cash, have no debt besides my mortgage. I'm in a good position. I'm making more money than both my parents combined that they've ever made in their life by the time I'm 23. So, I keep doing that. I'm 24, I'm 25, I'm 26. I'm 26, making 200K plus a year, no debt. And I'm just completely miserable. Okay. Because I had already achieved those goals financially. Like I got rid of the debt, I bought a house, I bought a nice car, everything I need. And I was like, what is the point of this? You know what I mean? Because in sales, it's always, what have you done for me lately? You could have the biggest month ever, and then the first of the month comes along and it's like,
you're just as good as your last month, right? Yeah.
This is your last month. Time to grind, right? And there's just a lot that goes. So I'm on call 7 days a week. I'm always having to go to the hospital on weekends, and I have to get these referrals because it's a tough competitive business. And so I was very unhappy. And I think, and you got to remember, I'm like in my early to mid 20s, and all of my peers are like in their 50s and 60s. Okay. Yeah. So I started to like look ahead, and I'm like thinking about, I don't want to be these people that are stuck in this job that they hate and they have golden handcuffs because they make so much money, they can't quit. And because I wasn't like, I'm kind of unique. Like I don't really talk to anybody from high school. Like I don't have a lot of personal friends. I keep a very small circle, and I've always kind of been, an old soul, so to speak. Right. So my colleagues are the people that are working, physicians, healthcare business owners, healthcare administrators. And I'm like, man, I don't want to turn out like this. And so I was like, I need to figure out a way to stop, having to grind constantly with my time and energy doing something I don't like to make money. How can I make money without having to do that? And so I had no background. I got my real estate license in 2016, right after my MBA, because I just needed something to do. Never used it. January 2018, I'm like, I've had enough. I had no plan, but I just wanted to create passive income. So I said, screw it. I don't even have time to figure out what I want to do because I'm so consumed by this job. So in January 2018, I resigned and I sold my equity in the company. I had earned some sweat equity in that company. And I had almost 300K of cash. Okay. So I'd relentlessly saved my cash the previous 4 to 5 years following the Dave Ramsey plan.
Yeah.
And I'm just a single guy, I keep all my bills really low. And then I got a little pop of equity from that sweat equity. So I had about 300K of cash. And I was like, I'm going to live off of this and figure out how to create passive income through real estate. I had never heard of multifamily syndication when I quit, ever. I didn't have no idea about the concept. I was thinking of flipping homes. So I was looking at flipping homes. I created an LLC to flip homes. Then I was like, that's transactional. I don't want to do that. That's what I was just doing. Then I started listening to podcasts and learning about cash flow. And I really liked the idea of mobile home parks. People tell me they're a cash cow. You get passive income. So I cold called over 90 mobile home park owners in the Phoenix area. Like I had this whole system. Like I signed up for one of those like data websites, and I would try to like pierce the corporate veil, like use public record to find out who owns it and then start calling them. And only a handful of them answered. None of them wanted to sell. My whole strategy was like buy when on a sell or carry, right? Because I had this chunk of money, Julie, and to me that was a ton of money at the time, right? Like I thought I was rich. And then I started realizing how fast your money burns when you don't have income coming in. And I was like, how can I make the biggest impact with this chunk of money? And so that's why I was like wanting to buy a mobile home park. Then I started doing the math and I realized like, I'm going to put all my money into this mobile home park. If I'm lucky, maybe I'll make like $2 to $3 grand a month in cash flow. And then I have to run the park myself and I'm out of cash. I'm broke. Then what's my next step? So I was trying to learn, you know what I mean? And you know how it is when you're new to real estate, there's all these shiny objects. There's self-storage, there's development, there's mobile home parks. And I kept getting discouraged because I started realizing mobile home parks, the cash flow wasn't as good as I thought. Because even in 2018, those cap rates were compressed. You know what I mean? So people think that like now they're bad or whatever. It was like, it seemed like that in the time as well. I was like, this is so saturated and competitive. I learned about multifamily and this whole concept of syndication. And I kind of flirted with the idea, but I was like, it's probably super competitive. What can I find that I'm in like early on where I can beat the competition? And I finally came to the realization, Julie, that anything that's successful and makes money is extremely competitive. And I had to say, okay, I need to stop worrying about the competition. And I need to think they need to compete with me, not I need to compete with them. And that's when I realized multifamily syndication, that's what I need to focus on. And this was like 4 to 5 months into me quitting the job. So like April, May timeframe, I said 100% multifamily syndication, because when I learned about this, I think it was like a Michael Blanc podcast. And Michael Blanc's a great guy, by the way. And so I think he was one of the first podcasts that I started listening to and consuming his content. And that opened up my whole world. And I didn't realize there was a whole world like this, right? Like many of you have probably realized when you start to get exposed. So it's like the whole premise of me leveraging my time and energy. So for something that I actually feel excited about, and basically the investor leverages their money and my time, and we can help each other. That was really exciting for me because I no longer had to like think about my dollars can only go X amount. I was thinking I can earn sweat equity with my time and energy by helping other people. So long story short, I mean, I know I could go on and on. Basically, I decided on multifamily. It took 10 months to get the first deal under contract. I lost all my self-confidence. I really lost my self-identity at that point. So I was like, what am I doing? Even my own family, people are like, why did you quit your job? You're stupid. So you have all these different people telling you can't do it and that you shouldn't do it and doubting you. Finally, we get a 36 unit deal under contract, and we can unpack some of this later if you want. That took 4 months to close. So it was 14 months from when I quit the job to buying the first deal. And then we started to syndicate thereafter. And so
Okay.
I know we only have limited time and I could kind of go on forever. So I don't know
Well,
where you,
okay, so let's jump in. So I met you 4 years ago. You had a meetup in Phoenix,
Yep.
Standing room only. You got Neil Bawa there. It's packed. And I'm like, who is this young buck? How is he packing this place, to the gills? I want to know what he's doing. So, you were on the rise at that point. So 4 years ago, you now are at $1.8 billion of assets. So, well, a couple things. I look at you and I know you don't usually ask young ladies like myself how old they are, but how old are you?
yeah. I'll be 55 next week.
No, you're not
I'm
55.
31. I'm 31.
31.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, 31 years old, $1.8 billion. So I'm seeing him when he is a young buck. Not that you're not young, but you're really young and you're in a large market that is on fire. I looked at Phoenix back in 2005, actually, for single family. And I'm so grateful I didn't, because so many people lost money. And then all of a sudden we're back. We're out of the recession. We're out of this financial bind in 2005 to 2015, and it's starting to heat up. And you got Zach, who is fairly new, obviously, at this point, 4 years ago, and you're playing in a very big sandbox. So I want you to unpack those first 1 to 3 years, because, listen, 2019, we were doing agency loans. 18, 19, 20 agency loans, 20, 21, 22, we're into bridge lending.
Right.
And
Same.
that's after I hear your first 1 to 3 years. How do you find your partners? Partnering is a big deal. And so
Yep.
I want you to unpack those first 3 years, finding your partners, what kind of debt you put on it. If you sold anything, what were your returns?
Yep. Good
Ready,
question.
go.
All right, here we go. I'll be more articulate here and concentrated on the details. So basically, within those first 10 months I was talking about, I started reading books and just consuming a ton of content. I realized I needed a team. I realized I can't do this on my own.
No.
And my net worth was my cash. Okay. It was like 300K. That was my net worth. My family does not have any money to help me. There's nobody. I don't have a mentor. I don't have anybody. Right. So I'm like, I got to grind this out and figure it out. So I started flying around to conferences and I started joining different education groups, mentorship programs. I signed up for like online videos. I dropped 30K on one of these mentorship programs. At a conference in Dallas, I met my first partner, Robert. So Robert, at the time, I think he was like mid 40s. And, he actually was like, yeah, I live in Phoenix too. I want to do multifamily. And his net worth was probably like 3 to 4 million at the time. I mean, he probably won't care. I sell him that. His wife's a physician. He's got a background in like architecture. It's like, okay. And he has a construction background. So it's like, okay, this can be my construction guy. Cause the way I viewed this the entire time, Julie, is that I'm on a mission here to build a big portfolio. And I know I cannot raise money because I don't have a track record, but I kind of viewed myself as the architect of the team, or like the point guard, so to speak. Right. So I can put together these pieces to build the team to get to the goal. That was what I was thinking. I'm going to be the leader. You know what I'm going to figure it out. So Robert solved the balance sheet issue because I could not qualify for a loan, right? As I'm sure Julie has done education on before, you have to have net worth liquidity to qualify to sign on these loans. I didn't have anybody I knew. So I met Robert and he checked that box. He also had the construction background, which is what I lacked. I needed that. And initially, like I've got an MBA, I've taken these accounting classes, but I was underwriting these deals and I freaking hate underwriting. Okay. It drives me crazy. Sitting in front of spreadsheets is not my thing, which is why like anybody who like wants to reach as Nicholas earlier, like when you spoke, Nicholas, I was like, you're valuable because there's very few people that will say, call me for underwriting, right? That's like worth your weight in gold, honestly. But so I was like, I need a true finance guy. I hadn't even found him though until after we were under contract for the first property. So first I meet Robert. I say, Robert, let's do this. Come on. I got this cash. We're going to make it happen. We tie up this 36 unit deal. We needed to raise 1.4 million. I'm 25K non-refundable for earnest money. We tried to syndicate it. Nobody wants to invest. We didn't have a track record. All the people I talked to said, oh, never mind. I'm not interested. So I needed to find this 1.4. I had 165K left. I put 160 into the deal, all my money. I talked Robert to putting in 275. I found a 1031 investor at a conference, put over 600K. I met Bikram while we were in escrow, and talked him to putting in 150. And Bikram later on became our CFO. So Bikram has an economics degree, CPA, worked at one of the big four accounting firms, elite financial analysis background, which was my ultimate complementary partner, right? That's what I was missing, because up to this point, Julie, I had probably quote unquote dated like 7 or 8 different business partners. This is not like I just met these guys and it all fell together. I met people at meetups, LinkedIn, conferences, and you say, hey, you like multifamily, let's work together, let's underwrite deals together. Like this is what my role will be, this is what your role will be. And what I found, some people don't want to work as hard as you. Some people, you can't get a hold of them. Some people had over 1,000 units for experience, but they were just trying to take advantage of me, having me do all the work. And then there was one guy who we got along really well, really hard worker, respected him. We had nightly phone calls for like 2 months. And then I realized we have the exact same skill set. And so I finally said, hey, I respect you. You're doing great. I don't need you. You don't need me. We're not helping each other. We both need a true underwriting guy. We need a finance guy. Okay. So it's like, we're just wasting our time here. And so I kind of like broke up with him. So like I think what we've seen, and you can probably relate to this, Julie, is that, I mean, the great thing about multifamily is it has become more exposed. Like there's meetups, there's conferences, but at the same time, it's almost, in my opinion, become too casual with partnering, right? It's like, let's just be co-GPs. Oh, you like the Yankees, I like the Yankees. Let's be co-GPs. You know what I mean? And I think people don't think of it as much as like a business partnership. And when you're doing this, you need to realize, what are your goals? And when you're looking for partners, you need to be very disciplined with who you want as a partner. What is their skill set? What are they going to bring to the table? What value do they bring to you? And it might sound selfish, but you should be selfish because you have a business to run, right? And you're going to start to find out the more co-GPs you add, the thinner and thinner your compensation is going to be, and you still might be doing the same amount of work. And so I was very, particular about who I wanted my partners to be and what I was looking for in certain traits, right? And I would cut people if I felt like they weren't going to help us meet my goals, frankly. And I wanted people who had similar goals. So anyways, we got the first deal done, 36 unit, bootstrapped it, did a tenant in common, a tick structure. And then we did another tick structure in 2019, 59 unit. We syndicated the first deal, was a 76 unit. And then we syndicated a 137 unit. And so initially, it's very difficult to raise money. So I was just trying to find 1031s. I would try to find other people who are more experienced. So I had my core partners, which was Robert and Bikram, right? And we weren't Rise48 yet. We had our own little brands, right? Everybody has their own brand. I was ZH Multifamily, right? That's what I was when you came to the meetup. It was ZH Multifamily Meetup. And then Bikram was Bright Investors, Robert was RNA Real Estate Advisors. And then we would try to bring in like other co-GPs who can help with asset management, who can help with operations, we can learn from, who can help, raise money to just put these deals together. So we weren't really making much money. We didn't charge any acquisition fees the first 4 deals. So we wanted to prove out our track record to investors. My whole thing was just track record. I just want to get in the game and I want to be able to learn. Okay. And we'll make money later on. And so by the end of 2019, I was at this for like 24 months straight. We owned 4 deals, 35 million, right? I was dead broke. All my money went into the deals. I'm not making any money from them. And I have $12,000 in credit card debt. Okay. So my then girlfriend, now wife, Grace, was paying our bills. And thank God for her. I paid her back later. But September of 2019, so I was about a little over 18 months into this little journey. My non-compete that I had with my previous hospice firm ended, and I needed money. I was like, the multifamily thing is not taking off like I thought. I own 35 million, but I'm broke. This sucks.
Interesting.
I need to make money. And so I went back, I got an offer to be the president and co-owner of another hospice company, which I took. So I did that for 18 months. So from September of 2019 to February of 2021, I was the president and co-owner of a hospice organization full-time, 50 hours a week during the day. And we ran the real estate business at night. Bikram lived in California this entire time, by the way. And so he was working remote. So like every every night we'd have a Zoom call, like 6 to 10, 6 to 11. And we'd go through acquisitions that were underwriting, asset management. We were taking our phone calls with the PM company during the day, and we were doing all of that. Right. And so, I was having to grind it out, do those two things. 2020 comes, if COVID hits, we only buy 2 deals. But second half of 2020, everything starts to click, right? In the second half of 2020, we sold the first deal, which flushed me with cash, right? Because we like more than doubled the money, and I had like 160K into it. We started getting off-market deal flow from brokers finally, because we had bought like 4 deals all on the market. Like you said, very competitive. None of the brokers take me seriously. Who is this kid? Why is he wearing a tie in the summer? He looks like a freaking idiot. And so it's like you have to prove your track record with the brokers, and you can't listen to all these people that are frankly talking shit about you, excuse my language, and all these critics and haters. I mean, that was constant when we were starting, right? And when I was starting, nobody takes you seriously. So it's like, okay, now we closed 4 deals. We own 35 million. And now the brokers start to take you seriously. And the same skill set that I used when I was an outside marketer for hospice, I would use on the brokers. Like I knew how to finesse these guys. I know how to constantly stay in front of them. I'll tour deals that they have that I have no intention buying just to get a touch point with them. You know what I mean? I'll do whatever I have to do to stay in front of them. And so bottom line is second half of 2020, we start selling deals. So we're getting flushed with personal cash. And then every time we're selling a deal, we're getting flooded with referrals from from investors who are in that deal, because they're happy and they're referring their friends, colleagues, and family. So our ability to raise equity is now increasing. We start sourcing off-market deals from brokers. So we're getting better deal sourcing. And then we felt like we had somewhat of a track record. So we started charging acquisition fees on our new acquisitions, right? So all of a sudden, we're starting to generate the ability to source deals, raise money, and generate revenue. So like this was 3 years, all of 2018, all of 2019, and all of 2020. I made almost no money. Okay. Until that.
So I do want to pause there, because a lot of people who've gotten into this 3 years ago, they were getting into acquisitions, a whole bunch of acquisitions, and they want to quit their job. It's funny, you did it the opposite. You didn't do any of the acquisitions. You were poor, and then you changed that vision for yourself. I think it's amazing. And the thing that I love what you're saying is you were in it for 3 years with nothing, without any money. There's so many people, again, who think you're going to get rich quick. So I love that what you're saying here. So with that, I want to make sure that everybody understands at this point, you've got 4 deals, the end of 3 years. You're starting to take a look at more deals. There's more deal flow based on your relationships that you've built with these brokers. A key item there, everybody. Got to build these relationships, got to build the relationships with the lenders, right? And build the relationships with your investors. There's 3 very large keys here. And then sellers too. You're probably learning from sellers. Sellers say, hey, I can call up Zach and he'll maybe come over and we can do it without the broker. I'm not sure, but
yeah.
Okay, so it's 22. All right, you're at 2021. We've got COVID. Things are starting to pop for you. And in COVID, we started to see a lot of bridge debt. And this is the key. I want to hone this in, because, Zach, you're kind of on the hot seat. You're on the hot seat because of 2 articles that came out. And this is why a lot of people are here tonight. Usually we have a little bit more, but there are some conflicting deals going on tonight.
Sure.
A lot of people have seen these 2 articles. They're curious. Okay, Zach, let's hear it from the horse's mouth. Okay. These articles they're putting you on the hot seat. Okay. And when I saw them, I'm like, whoa, I got to find out. I hope that you'll talk about it when we're in this interview. So here we are. The Real Deal put out one article with Tides Equities and with you and another group, and made a comment that apparently they called you. You had kind of unpacked it when the article came out. The article was not what you had unpacked for them. And then you were so great and got on with your investors. In fact, I'm not an investor, but I'm probably part of your network. I received a video that you took, which unpacked it for the people that are not in your deals to kind of say, hey, this is how this all went down. So kind of talk to me about, get this article. This is kind of putting you on your reputation on the line. How do you manage that? How do you've been going along great. You're using bridge debt, which is another thing I want to talk about that may be causing some of this concern, because as you know, you, Zach, and everybody here listening, we know that bridge debt has been pretty, with the funds, the Fed funds rising, 10x in a short amount of time. This has created a huge problem for operators. Okay. And not only that, but you're also in the market of Phoenix, which is one of the fastest decline in rent growth. It's not even rent growth, it's rent decline. We've got occupancy issues. So all of these things have come to the forefront and are being pointed at you. So how are you managing? We talk about these rate caps costing. Today I heard $3 million for a rate cap, this insurance policy on top of a bridge loan. And you are continuing to do them. Not
Right.
popular things. So help us unpack that, the real deal article, what you're doing, how are you kind of going up against this animosity from some other people in the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's not in our nature to, go tit for tat with some, media company. Like, we don't like to create distractions. We like to stay focused on executing the plan. So it's not to get attention. We felt like they took it out of context, which I kind of laid out in the video, just to kind of give people the facts. But giving people some context, we've purchased now 44 different assets, and we've done a combination of 10-year Freddie fixed rate loans, 10-year Freddie floating rate loans, and debt fund bridge loans. So, and we've sold all those deals. We've purchased 44 deals. We've gone full cycle, sold 11 deals. We've exited 11 deals so far. So we know all the nuances, the pros and the cons of these debt products, from acquisition through operations while you're executing a business plan and renovating units, and the consequences of the prepay penalty when you sell the deal. Okay. And so, yeah, the fact that we're doing debt fund bridge loans is intentional, and we have our reasons why. And we explain to investors, and investors totally understand, because give you guys an example. Whenever you do a fixed rate loan, whether it's a bank, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, whatever, whenever a lender gives you a fixed rate loan, they're guaranteeing your interest rate won't change. If interest rates go up in the market, they have exposure there, right? So that the way that they cover themselves is they hit you with a really nasty prepay penalty called yield maintenance or defeasance. Okay. And so, as an example, okay, 2 of our earliest deals that I was just talking about, 2 of those 4, we put 10-year Freddie fixed rate loans on. Okay. Because we're like, oh, fixed rate loan, that's a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you go fixed rate? That's the most conservative thing. We bought a deal in 2019 for $17 million. Okay. We renovate 50% of the units, exceed the pro forma rents, doing a great job in the business plan. 2 years later, we go to sell the deal, 2021. Okay. This is a 10-year Freddie fixed rate loan with yield maintenance. We go to sell it, and our prepay penalty is $3 million right off the top, $3 million cash right out of investor pockets, because yield maintenance means if it's a 10-year term and you owned it for 2 years, you're effectively paying the lender the entire yield they would have made as if you owned it for the entire term. They're maintaining the yield, so to speak, right? And so we're like, oh crap, we have to hold this deal 8 months longer than we even wanted to, continue to renovate, increase the NOI even more, just so we can absorb this massive prepay penalty upon the sale and still net out investors over a 2x return. And we were lucky the market was really strong, right? The market keeps going up to absorb these massive prepay penalties. And so that's what not a lot of people talk about, is that if you're going to execute a value add plan, from our perspective, the fixed rate debt with this yield maintenance defeasance doesn't make sense, because you are stuck in that loan. You could literally ace your business plan, renovate 100% of the units, hit your pro forma rents, you still may not be able to sell and net out the return that you wanted for your investors. And if you want to do a refinance, you may not be able to get the loan proceeds you thought, because that prepay penalty bites into your new proceeds. So if you're going to do a long-term hold, call it a 7 to 10 year, Class A yield play, long-term hold, by all means, I would put a 10-year Freddie fixed on there. But what we learned from experience is that these prepay penalties are really nasty, and it's impossible to underwrite yield maintenance in an underwriting model, because yield maintenance changes daily, okay? Just like interest rates, just like the market. So the reason that we first then pivoted to Freddie floating rate, okay? So Freddie floating rate, basically, your prepay penalty is much more flexible. It has what's called a 12-month lockout. You can't sell the deal for 12 months after owning it. Once you do, it's just 1% prepay penalty of the existing loan amount at that time. So we started doing Freddie floating rate. What we realized, though, Julie, is that whenever you're doing these agency loans, in our 5-year stress tested model, we're assuming that we're going to buy a deal. Right after we buy the deal, and this is what we assume in the model, ever since day one, every single deal we assume this, we're going to buy a deal. And in the model, we always had interest rate expansion. So we always assume interest rates will increase. We assume that there will be a massive recession or downturn where organic rent growth decreases significantly, economic occupancy goes up, and that even with the downturn, we hold through the recession, execute the business plan by renovating 100% of the units, and sell in year 5. That's the stress test, okay? Well, so what you have to do, if that's your model, you have to raise 100% of renovation dollars up front from investors with agency loans. You can't take cash flow from operations towards renovation dollars. I have to raise the down payment, my operational reserves, and then 100% of CapEx for interiors, exteriors up front. Well, a lot of these deals, because the market was strong, we'll blow through, and I'll get to your question on the real deal too. I'm just giving context. We'll get through 20 to 50% of the units, like in the first 6 to 12 months. We'll blow through renovations quickly, prove out the concept, and then we'd stop renovating on purpose to leave value add or meat on the bone for the next guy, right? So we can sell the deal early at a lower cap rate. And that was the strategy. That's how you prime these deals, right? I'm trying to make it look really juicy for the next guy. I'm going to get these big rental increases, then I'm going to stop. I'm going to stabilize. I'm going to get all my operating line items looking real nice to prepare it to sell. That's what we were doing. Meanwhile, I raised millions of dollars of CapEx up front to renovate all the units, and it's sitting in an operating account, diluting investor returns. Because every dollar I raise, I have to get a return on that dollar, right? So then we're like, how can we get a flexible prepaid penalty and not be raising all this money diluting investor returns, right? So then we started to pivot to debt fund bridge loans. Okay, so your timeline is totally accurate. I think it was in line with the market. And it's funny how some of these narratives want to make it seem like there's like these criminal syndicators who are sitting in their basement raising money from investors with these reckless bridge loans. Most of the multifamily across the country value add that was done 2021, 2022 was with bridge loans, even the large institutions, right? And the majority of owners of multifamily is not syndicators, it's large institutions. Okay, syndicators are a small portion of that. It's just that you only hear about the syndicators because all the institutions are well capitalized. They're pumping money into their deals right now. Okay, they're doing their own capital calls internally and you'll never hear about it, right? Because they've got one big check. They're not going out to retail investors. That's the big difference. We pivoted to debt fund bridge loans beginning of 2021. Okay. And we were always kind of hesitant about bridge loans because we had heard stories as well. And so Bikram, Bikram, my partner, for example, he used to work at PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, and he was a corporate auditor for Fortune 100 companies. And when I first met him, I was talking to him about his philosophy on this whole multifamily thing. And he said, Zach, I've seen under the hood and the financials of the biggest companies in the world. And whenever they get into trouble, it's because they didn't have enough liquidity. They weren't capitalized well enough and they get over leveraged. Okay, so our strategy has always been to take lower leverage upon acquisition. Okay, so my point was saying is that a lot of the groups right now that are in trouble with their bridge financing took 80 to 85% plus loan to value upon acquisition. The highest loan to value upon acquisition when we bought the deal, and loan to value definition is your loan amount, your initial funding to buy the deal divided by purchase price, right? If you buy a single family home for $1 million, you get $800,000 loan, you put $200K down, you have 80% loan to value. The highest loan to value upon acquisition we ever took was 75%. Okay, we've typically been 60 to 70. Right now we have 33 deals. Our average loan to value upon acquisition, 68% loan to value. Okay, we also always purchase 3-year interest rate caps on every single deal. A lot of the groups that are in trouble bought 1 or 2 year caps, mostly 1 year caps. Some took no caps at all, which is crazy. I don't even know why the lender would allow that.
Well,
And then,
and you know, just to pause there,
sure.
back in 2021, you know, we bought ours for $72,000. I mean, it was nothing.
Right, they're cheap. They're super cheap. Yep.
So it made sense. It was not a big deal. But now you're in 2022, and these rate caps are enormous.
Yep.
So what you're saying is you're paying cash for those the CapEx budget, right? You're bringing in all that money. You're actually having to pay for all that money, but you're not taking out. Are you? You're telling me that the bank is not giving you the CapEx budget? Then they're just giving you the.
We've only worked with debt. Yeah, we've only worked with debt funds. We've never worked with the bank.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, I call them lenders, but right.
no,
So banks,
yeah,
whatever. But
yeah, basically the debt funds will give you what's called future funding, right? They're only
correct.
financing the dollars that you actually use.
So are
Right?
you using future funding, or you're using all your capital
No,
that
we
you
are.
already raised?
No,
You're
we
using
are.
that
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Okay.
For the debt funds, we are. For
Yeah.
Freddie Mac agency loans, you have to raise
Yeah.
all the money up front from investors.
Makes
For
sense.
debt funds, the way it works is you raise liquid working capital up front, and then right when I close on the deal, I immediately start renovating interiors and exteriors, executing my business plan. After let's say I renovated, 10 units and I painted the exterior. Every time you complete something, you have to submit a draw to the lender, right? And we've got a full accounting team. These draws are very intricate and complex, and you got to have invoices, and then they're going to have somebody come out and inspect to make sure you hit the pro forma rent you were trying to hit, and you hit the budget. And then you submit a draw, and they'll reimburse you for what you've spent. Okay, so it's not like they're financing all these CapEx dollars up front. The whole idea is that I'm fronting cash that I raised up front of the property to renovate units, increase the rents, which increases the value of the asset. So my value's gone up, right? Because I increased the NOI. And then they're going to increase their loan proceeds to reimburse me for what I've spent. Okay, that's the whole idea. If you're not increasing the value of the asset, you don't get the draw, right?
So let's unpack that, because now you've got rents coming down, right? You've increased the value, but when rents go down, your value goes down, right? Your cap rate is expanding. So how are you managing that with the rents coming down? You continue to renovate these with the idea that, oh, I'm going to get $500 more a month from each of these renovated units. My understanding is that you bought at the right basis, and that's the key here, everybody. The right basis with the right knowing where you're going in rents. So kind of talk about that.
Great question, Julie. So what's happened is organic rent growth has, decelerated significantly across the country, right? And I think in Phoenix right now, trailing 12 organic rent growth is like -4%, right? And so basically what happened is you buy a deal in 2021, 2022. Okay, you have an interest rate cap up here. Call it, it could be anywhere from 5.5% to 6.5% is your cap. You're buying a deal at a low 3 to mid 3% interest rate, right? And nobody expects interest rates to skyrocket up. Okay, so what happens is in a short amount of time, in 12 months or less, in 2022, when rates go up, your debt service shoots up to your cap all of a sudden, right? And in a lot of these deals, it exceeded your NOI, because in the model, you're saying my NOI is here, my debt service is here, my cap's up here. Nobody expects debt service to shoot up, so I'm always going to stay above. What happened for people across the country, including big institutions, debt service shoots up. If you don't have cash reserves that you raised up front at the property level, you're screwed. You're out of liquidity, right? So the difference that I was trying to make to the real deal when they're trying to put all these different groups in this bucket of being distressed, as I said, we are not distressed because we took lower leverage than all these other groups. We have 3-year caps. The first cap does not expire till June of 2024. On the latest deal that we own. Like, we've sold 11 deals. So the longest deal we've owned now, we've owned it since June of 21. And we raised significant cash reserves, to cover the delta in the short period here, in the short term. Meanwhile, it's a race against the clock to increase the velocity of renovations, to increase NOI, to close the gap, right? And so that's what we've been doing. And so in the article, the reason that I even made the video, and again, we don't do this to get attention. I don't like to, get distractions or be, controversial or anything like that. My frustration was that she reaches out and I said, hey, we're not doing capital calls. We're not selling deals. We have a plan. Here's the data. Since January through June, we renovated 883 units. Our average rental increase is $449 a unit, which is $22 above pro forma. Even with organic, and that's net of organic rent growth assumptions. Even with organic rent growth declining, I'm still exceeding my pro forma rents. And last summer, when the writing was on the wall that rates would increase quickly, we said, okay, we need to crank the renovations. Because remember, these 2021 deals, we would blow through like 20 to 40, 20 to 50% in the first 6 to 12 months. And then we stopped on purpose because you're positioned to sell in 2022. Well, now we're getting into like Q3, early Q4 of 2022. And these rates are not going to, they're not going to stop. We're like, okay, well, you don't want to start forcing vacancy around the holidays to increase velocity renovations because it's just a slow leasing season. Everybody knows that, right? And so we said in January, we are going to crank up the velocity. We're going to start renovating units because we have 18 months till the first cap expires, which is June of 24. So the goal is to get all the 2021 deals 90 to 100% renovated before their caps expire so that we can increase NOI and get our DSCR up over 1.25 to qualify for enough loan proceeds to refinance in 2024, pay off the bridge loan. And we would refi into, probably like a Freddie floater, ideally. And you can use your loan. It depends. I mean, we'll look at where stuff is at. I mean, we've looked at the 5-year Fannie fixed is not bad because it has like 3 or 4 years of yield maintenance. We've talked to a lot of people like Julie, who specialize in these things. And Julie is obviously probably having these conversations every day. But basically the idea is that you increase your NOI to the point to where even if interest rates don't come down, your NOI is high enough to be able to qualify for enough loan proceeds to pay off the first loan. And then you can get a new loan, which extends your term, right, to protect it.
So just so that, our listeners kind of understand, and I love the way that you've unpacked that because it's right on. Where we're seeing in the market today is not being able to get proceeds. That NOI is just not hitting those pro forma rents and being able to go into a new refinance. A lot of us thought it would be 75 in Phoenix, 75, 80%. It's a top market. We get 80% leverage, and we're not seeing that. We're seeing more like 50, maybe even 48, 50% to get out of these loans, right? Today.
Yeah, it depends on your DSCR. It's all about the DSCR, right? For your proceeds. Your NOI will determine your DSCR and your proceeds. And not to cut you off, Julie, but some of these rates, these rate caps, like we have a couple caps in 2021 that are like 6.6%. If I refi right now into a Freddie or Fannie, I'm going to refi into a mid-5 rate, right? Which actually shoots my DSCR up because I have less debt service. It can give me more leverage. I'm actually refinancing into a lower rate. So yeah, we're not going to get a lot of leverage. We're just trying to get our DSCR and proceeds high enough to pay off the first loan, get into a new loan to protect the investment. And so the biggest thing, again, the reason we did that, the response was that they intentionally said renovations gone wrong and that renovations aren't panning out, when in fact, the renovations are our saving grace. If you can't renovate and you can't increase NOI by forcing appreciation, you are in trouble. And that's why I gave the example. DSCR was X at this time. We've drastically increased DSCR to X at this time. By this time, we project it'll be X. And by the time the cap comes, we project it'll be X. And so my point was saying is that, yeah, I mean, anybody who bought floating rate debt, it sucks. The rates shot up on you, but it doesn't mean necessarily that everybody's in trouble because these investments are not over, right? The first cap doesn't expire for 12 months. And then it starts to expire after that. And we have a plan, we're on track to get there. And so that's kind of what the point I was trying to say is that, we have a lot of cash reserves at the property level. We have 3-year caps. We took lower leverage than a lot of these groups that are in trouble. And I wasn't trying to say what our loan to value is today. I said loan to value upon acquisition. The whole point is that my loan amount for my initial funding is lower than a lot of the other groups that may be in trouble. They have more leverage, right? Sure. And the difference is we can renovate these units and we're actually seeing the results, right? We're forcing the appreciation. So that's kind of the position that we're in. In 2023, we've adapted. We really started doing this in the middle of 2022, right? Because the first hike was like March, and then it started coming in summer. So in middle of 2022, we're like, okay, we need to buy lower interest rate caps, raise even more cash reserves. So right now we're buying strike rates where our max interest rate is all in around 4.75 to 5% for the first 3 years. And these caps are very expensive, Julie, to your point. So our whole thing is that if in our model, 0% organic rent growth in year one, conservative organic rent growth assumptions, we always shop all the comps for pro forma rents. So we have conservative assumptions for our post renovation rents, which we've proven we're hitting. If we can build in the front end this expensive cap as a closing cost, and the deal still pencils with our other assumptions, we feel confident with the deal because now we've effectively engineered like a 3-year fixed rate loan at 4.75 to 5% max rate. And I can underwrite my prepay penalty. Most of these lenders, these debt funds want to see 12 to 18 months of interest payments as your prepay penalty. So meaning if you own it for 18 months and then you sell it after that, you have no prepay penalty whatsoever. I mean, we have a deal right now. They don't have any prepay penalty whatsoever. And so basically I can underwrite my prepay penalty. I mitigate against interest rate risk with this lower cap. I raise even more cash reserves up front. And so that's how we feel comfortable doing these deals going forward. And then we're just making sure that, hey, in our forecasts by the end of year 3, if rates have not come down 36 months from now, we feel confident we've increased NOI enough to be able to refi out of that loan and get into a new loan. If we can't refi for some option or some reason, second option is we feel confident we can hit the debt yield or DSCR covenants to qualify for the extension, because these are all 3+1+1 loans. So we get to year 4, year 5, and then we have significant cash reserves at the property level to buy another interest rate cap, right? So we have different flexibility here, whereas fixed rate debt, you don't have the interest rate risk, but good luck getting out of that loan. If it's value added, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So anyways, that's kind of our philosophy. And I know that was kind of.
All right. So let's kind of wrap this up. You are in Phoenix. Things are kind of going a little bit crazy over there with, rents going down. You pivot to Dallas. Dallas is having a hard time now too. You just closed another deal, a 207 unit building in Dallas and Arlington. Tell us what you put on that. It's a fresh new look. We're still at the high interest rates. What do you use for that property?
Yep, it's a debt fund loan, 58% loan to value, 3-year interest rate cap, max interest rate 4.75 the first 3 years.
There you go.
Since 2020, since interest rates started going up, all of our deals are anywhere 55 to 70% loan to value. Some are 55 to 65. So yeah, they're lower leverage loans.
Yeah. So that's smart. I mean, that's really what you have to be looking at. So, all right, that was a lot. We talked about bridge loans. What has been your biggest challenge this year?
Yeah,
2023.
Good question. I mean, I think it's just the uncertainty of raising equity, because it's like you never know what investor sentiment is. And fortunately, it's been really strong. But it's like every deal, as a syndicator, Julie, yourself, it's like you send an email and you pray to God that people click a button, right? Yeah. You don't know, you don't have control over it. And so I think the biggest thing that's helped set us apart, and this kind of goes back to your earlier question too, is that we've always tried to be as transparent with investors as possible. Yeah. As an example, we have very institutional level reporting. So every single month we send a report, which has an executive summary, which is, 9 pages, and it shows you, here's DSCR currently, here's trailing 12 DSCR, here's all the actuals versus budgeted month over month. And that's just the executive summary. We renovated X amount of units. Here's our average increase. Here's occupancy versus budgeted. So you're getting everything based on what the initial projection was. And then every single month, we upload the entire financial package into the investor portal. Every single investor gets the property bank accounts, bank statements, mortgage statements, general ledger, balance sheet, literally everything that we have visibility to. Every single one of our 4,000 plus investors have visibility to. And I've been getting feedback really since Q3 of last year when rates started skyrocketing, people start pausing distributions. That starts leading to capital calls with a lot of groups. Yeah. I've been hearing from a ton of different investors. Okay. I talk to them almost every day saying, hey, I really appreciate all the transparency, all the information that you guys give. Some of these people are invested with like 5 to 10 sponsors, right? So it's like, it's not like our investors only invest with us. They're with people across the country.
Sure.
And they've said, we appreciate, the reporting. We think that your strategy makes sense to renovate units. It's obviously effective. And, we understand, the market is softening, rates are going up, but they're like, some of these guys, we're not even getting reports. I don't have the financials. And
Crazy.
maybe the operator doesn't have anything to hide, but when you don't, give information, it can create the perception of that. And so I think investors have felt more comfortable because we give them all this information and we tell people, and we've also recorded twice now this year, a live state of the portfolio live webinar, right?
Yeah.
Which we not only blasted to our we have 2 different lists. We have like our existing substantive investor list in our CRM, people that we've had calls with, they're on our investor list, and we have a marketing list. And I think you're on the marketing list, Julie.
Yeah.
So you get some of this stuff. And so we blasted the whole thing. There's 5,000 plus people on the marketing list. And we go through state of the portfolio. How's our portfolio doing? What's our strategy? Where are things at? We answer investor questions. And, I've stayed on those things for, the last one's like an hour, 45 minutes. And most
I would tell you not to interrupt you, but that is key. In a time when we have uncertainty, we've got people that we're hearing are, the guys Apple's Way in Houston. That uncertainty is every one of us that are syndicators are feeling it. Even if our deal is okay, you're hearing it, by dilution of everybody else. So, I think everybody appreciates that. I do have a question for you, Kyle. From Kyle. Kyle says, in the past, were you projecting rents significantly lower than market rate to hit returns criteria in your pro forma? Just thinking about how you can only push NOI so much before properties are maxed out.
Yeah, good question. Let me see. Were you projecting rents significantly lower than market rate to hit returns? Yeah, we've always had subscriptions to CoStar, RealPage. We're referencing, market analytics when we're creating our projections, right? So like right now, in deals that we're doing right now, for example, we're showing CoStar and RealPage year 1 organic rent growth projection versus us assuming 0%. And then we're showing their 5-year average organic rent growth year over year versus our projections. And we want to be more conservative than those projections. Right. And so, we weren't assuming 0% in year 1 in like 2021 because, nobody thought that. And I want to say we're like 3 to 4%. I have to look back at the model, but yeah, we're always using market data and, analytics, all these companies have economists when we're trying to create assumptions. And that's for organic rent growth. When we're talking about pro forma rents, we personally secret shop the comps. I did this myself the first 2 years. Every single deal we made an offer on, I shopped the comps. Like I drove to all the properties. I walked inside. I said, what's your base rent, your price per square foot? What are your amenities? Let me tour the units. And that gave me a really good sense. And so when we're creating pro forma rents, these are not aggressive. These are already being proven out in that market right now. And we want to be right in line or below what's already being achieved. And it's a volume game. Like we just put a new slide in a new deck for investors. So we entered Dallas November 2022, Julie. Since November, it's been about 7 months. We've underwritten 191 different deals. Every single one of them is from brokers because basically, in Phoenix, we have really good relationships with the brokers. Like I know the top 5 or 6 guys. We've done off-market deals with every single broker. That's top guy. And I called them all in November, said, hey, we're going to Dallas. Can you refer me to your top guy in Dallas? And so it's kind of cool. It's all the same firms, CBRE, Marks and Millichap, Northmark, Berkadia, JLL, Newmark. We meet with all the top guys in Dallas. We get endorsed by the Phoenix guys. They're like, yeah, no, we want to work with you guys. We heard you guys perform. So these guys are feeding us deals. Out of the 191 deals that we've underwritten, 5 of them have penciled. It's a 2% hit rate. Okay, so people want to say, oh, you guys are just buying everything. No, you don't see how hard we grind. Like we're constantly talking to brokers, constantly underwriting deals. We just hired a new analyst a few months ago because the Dallas deal flow was too much and we weren't getting back to brokers fast enough. Because when we underwrite a deal, we have to obviously put all the stuff in the model. And then for every single deal we underwrite, we're reaching out to our tax consultant. We're reaching out to our property insurance consultant to give us estimates before we even think of making an offer. So we have actual quotes from property taxes, insurance. Then our asset management team has to shop the comps. So like, some of these asset management people, this is like 50% of their job now. They're just shopping comps because it's so time intensive, just to dial in the model to realize I'm 30% off what they want. That it's like banging your head against the wall constantly, right?
Yeah.
Nicholas knows what I'm talking about. That's what he's been working on the last year. You're basically getting your teeth kicked in every day, and you're just, and it's hard. So it's a volume game, but there are deals out there that work, and every deal that we've bought this year in Dallas has some sort of pressure on them from their lender. One deal, we closed it 1 month before their balloon payment was going to hit.
Wow.
They were lucky. And then the other ones, like their interest rate cap was going to come. Some of them had 10-year Freddie floaters where they're wiping out all their cash flow because they're sweeping it into an escrow account. So anyways.
So I mean, there you go. I mean, you're feeling it just, being a syndicator, moving into the landscape, because it is challenging. So Kyle has a question. How have you been able to be competitive with how conservative you are with growth and the amount you keep in operating reserves? I'm assuming just volume with the amount of deals you're underwriting to get one, but wondering if there's any other insight you have.
And then I know Kyle said, never mind, but you just pretty much just covered that. So yeah, you're right, Kyle. It's volume. I mean, there's no secret. Yeah. It's like, it's a grind. Like I missed a couple of calls from brokers today because I was too busy. Like, so we're talking to these brokers constantly and staying in front of them, and I'll tour deals that I don't intend to buy just to stay in front of them. Like I was in Dallas 2 weeks ago and I toured a few deals and we're not offering on any of them. I mean, it's just to kind of check in with these guys. And I mean, you don't tell them that up front, but you want to basically, I mean, you'll underwrite the deal and we'll say, and maybe I know because of location, I'm not going to make an offer on this, even if it pencils. You know what I mean? Because there's some deals you can get close, but you're like, that's a rough location. But yeah, you have to stay in front of these brokers, and then it's all about the momentum. I mean, you got to be getting the deal flow, and then, keep cranking the volume.
All right, let's pivot real quickly. Anybody in the audience that would like to ask a question before we wrap up our long conversation with Zach? And so fantastic. Thank you so much for to sharing with us. All right, Jason, what do you got? What's the question?
Yeah, so my quick question is, I want to know how, for the deals that you decide that just aren't worth it. For example, when I underwrite deals, sometimes, let's say, for example, that they're offering, like they're asking for 9 million, and I look at it and I see that to get my number, I need it to be like, let's say 6 million. Is that too far of a gap where you feel like it's not worth it? Or are you seeing that maybe that if the seller's motivated enough, that there's something still to be done with it? Like, where's your cutoff point when looking at the asking price and what your offer price has to be?
Good question, Jason. Good question. So this kind of relates to Nicholas's question that he just typed in there as well. I think this will answer both your guys' questions, because this is a tough thing, especially when you're new. You're underwriting a deal, you're way below what the seller wants and the broker guidance is. And part of you is like, man, I feel stupid even telling him this number. He's going to think I'm not real. The other part of you is like, am I even doing this right? Like, why is the number so much higher, right? That's how I was second guessing myself, which is like, I need a true finance guy who in background the volume before he even felt comfortable like with our underwriting. But basically a few years ago, it was tougher because it was a seller's market, right? Now you should expect to be well below what people want, because none of these sellers have realistic expectations and they don't need to sell. The only people that are going to, the only way your deal is going to pencil right now is if you're paying a significantly lower basis, minimum 20, 30% discount from what it would have traded for last year. And the only reason a seller is going to agree to that right now is if they have some sort of distress or pressure. Otherwise, that's why I've told investors all year, I said, we're not selling any deals this year. I'm not going to sell a deal and give a buyer a discount just to sell in the short term. There's no reason. You know what I mean? We're on track with our refis. We'll be fine. But some groups have to sell because they're facing distress. You know, we're going to buy a deal soon, and the equity is going to get wiped out. The seller's equity is completely gone. They're basically selling it for the loan amount. Yeah. Okay, and they have no choice. And so that's the kind of groups you have to find. But it's tough now if you don't have experience, because the brokers are going to the groups they know they can perform for those nice distressed assets. So, but to answer your question, this will help with Nicholas's question too. What we've, so like, in Phoenix, we've had the brokers, we've had them, a good relationship with them for a number of years. But when we started going to Dallas end of last year, it was kind of like starting out fresh, because we did have these endorsements, but we didn't have their direct relationships. And these guys still got to make sure they take you seriously. And we keep underwriting these deals. And I felt bad myself. I'm like, man, we're not even getting close. And I don't want these guys to stop sending me deals. I need volume. So what I told Bikron and Brady, our acquisitions manager, I said, we need to start giving these guys detailed summaries of our underwriting so that they know we actually spent time and underwrote it. I don't want them to think that I'm not spending time, because I had to keep calling these guys saying, hey, I shopped all the comps. We got the property tax quote. I got the insurance quote. We busted our ass on this underwriting. I'm 30% off. I don't know what you want me to tell you. So what we started doing is creating a detailed summary that we would just type out and send them. Hey, John Smith, broker, this was our assumptions for pro forma rents. This is our loss to lease. These are our assumptions for XXX. We gave them all of our assumptions. And we said, based on our underwriting, this is our max price, which is X% off what the seller wants. And to I don't want to say surprise, because I knew they would kind of appreciate it, but they were really excited. Like this is Phoenix brokers too we started doing this for. They're like, hey, thank you so much for this feedback. I really appreciate it. This makes total sense. This is good for my seller to know, because he has these unrealistic expectations. And I want them to know what people who are actually buying deals are seeing, right? So I think that from your guys' perspective, it's tough when you don't have a track record, because it's easy for a broker to write you off if you don't know what you're talking about, right? But you could know what you're talking about, and you could be really good at underwriting. And I think, to answer your question, Jason, give the feedback. And I'm telling people, because I talk to people almost every week that are like asking for advice, like just set up calls with me, and I try to help them, and they want to like get into this. And when I tell them, I said, hey, now is the time to get into the game. If you can figure out the financing and mitigate against the risk, just make the offer. Even if you're 6 million and they want 9 million, just send the LOI in, and maybe they'll accept it. You don't know. Tie the deal up, have refundable earnest money, and then see if you can raise the money. And if you can't raise the money, then back out, drop the deal before your money goes hard, and blame it on the debt. That's what I would do. You just say, hey, sorry, the debt doesn't work out. I got to drop. It's happening everywhere right now. A couple of years ago, you got to go non-refundable day one. If you drop the deal, you get blacklisted by the broker. These brokers want you to freaking make an offer, because they can't even get one offer, right? So I would say, to answer your question, give them detailed feedback. Just start shooting off LOIs, and don't be afraid to send it off, because they're going to get excited the fact that you even sent an LOI. And even if you can't perform, then you're just going to have to back out, you know what I mean? And figure it out. But it at least gives you the confidence that you sent an LOI. Because when I was starting out, I remember so scared to even draft an LOI and send it, because I knew if I sent it and if they accepted, I had to move on it. But don't feel scared to do that, because now you have nothing to lose. There's no buyers out there right now, hardly. There's like no competition. So
all right, Candace, sorry, Jason, I want to get Candace. Is she still looking to ask that question?
But you actually touched on part of my question quite a bit there. But the other one question, I just out of curiosity, how long did it take you to learn all the ins and outs of the loan aspect? Because it's almost like listening to you speak, it's like, I wish I could I'm going to take this presentation when we get the recording, and I'm going to really suggest my team listen to it, because a lot of people are applying loans into underwriting as if it's single family, and it's a whole different world. It's really, thank you so much, first of all, for presenting it this way. How do you, when you have, say, a rate cap or all of these extra fees, did I understand you correctly? There's really no place to put that in as an assumption in the underwriting, or did I misunderstand that?
The rate cap we raise as a closing cost. So we raise it up. We raise it from investors as part of the total capitalization upfront as a closing cost, just like we raise our legal fees, things like that. And if the deal still pencils with these heavy closing costs, we feel comfortable proceeding. I mean, one thing I will say is I don't want an article to come out in The Real Deal saying Zach is encouraging everybody to do floating rate loans and lose their shirt. If you can't execute a plan, like a value add plan, it's very difficult. Without infrastructure, I don't think now's a good time to start. I don't think people should be putting floating rate debt on these deals, because it is extremely critical that you can renovate units on schedule, on budget, and you have to have a team. I think if you're relying on third-party property management, it's very difficult. And so what I'm saying applies to us. And we were fortunate to build out this vertically integrated infrastructure the last several years. to where now we can perform. But if I had to do this right now, starting out, I wouldn't be putting floating rate debt on these deals, because as a newcomer, you're going to be using a third-party property management firm, and they're going to be subbing out the contractors themselves in the construction management. This is what we had to do initially too. So I'm not trying to say we're like, better than people, but it's all about which stage are you in of your experience and your business. And so, I think, putting a 5-year fixed rate loan maybe makes more sense, or buying a deal like a 5-year Fannie, which Julie can talk to you about, or buying a deal that doesn't really require a lot of value add. Maybe you find a deal that has a lot of loss to lease or operational upside, because the execution risk is renovating the units on schedule, on budget. And it's a ton of logistics to manage. And so I want to put that out there too. It's like what I'm saying from our experience, from us as an operator, but I know that we've got 230 full-time W-2 employees on full benefits. Like we've built out the structure and it's become a machine. But when we were starting out, we're using third-party management. They're using the construction management, and I'm having to go to the properties and chew out vendors myself. And you got to cuss out some guy who's not doing what he's supposed to do because the PM won't do it for you. You know what I mean? So I think you got to just kind of align the debt with what you think you can actually execute.
All right. Last question. Jason, you're back.
Oh, thank you. My last question, I guess, either one of you guys can go ahead and answer it, because I know Julius is right up your wheelhouse as well. When I underwrite deals, I like to be super conservative. And so therefore I always choose, like, for example, when rates were super low, I was like, okay, I'm going to say that the loan is going to be at 5% interest rate, at 20% ARM, and payment off in 5 years, just to be really conservative, so I can look and see what those numbers could possibly be, worst case scenario. So I want to know, as of right now, in your opinion, where would those numbers be if you were going to be really conservative? Like, what interest rate would you have it at to be super conservative? What ARM would you guys go ahead and be using?
Julie, I've done all the talking. Julie, you're the expert.
Well, no, it's okay. But I mean, right now you're expecting 550 on the, we're going to see an increase, right? So I would be using on the Fed funds at 550. And, again, if you think about Zach, he has he has experience, he has a relationship with a lot of these debt funds, right? So they're going to know, hey, I've got interest in doing business with him for a long time. As a new investor, you don't get some of that same rate impact that Zach gets. So I'd be at 550, and I would be using about a 425 on the spread. So you're right around 975. It's not a cheap way to go. And then you've got your cap rates on top of that. I'm sorry, your rate caps. And the rate caps are, it used to be 2%, but as the bond market gets stronger, although I think, we're hearing some more of this, the stock market has had some strength over the last couple of weeks. So the bond market is, lowering a little bit, but not significantly at this point. What about you? How would you respond to that, Zach?
Yeah, no, I think you make a great point, Julie, that some people want to say, for example, on our end, how are you guys buying deals? A lot of these lenders are not even doing deals with new borrowers. So I just had a call yesterday with the president and COO of one of our biggest lenders. And this is a massive multi-billion-dollar REIT. And I've got a pretty good relationship with him now. And he literally said, hey, you guys, we have hundreds of loans. You guys are executing these business plans, and we would still do deals with you because we're seeing you're hitting the rents. But he's like, we're not taking on new borrowers. And most of our lenders right now are repeat lenders. And if we weren't achieving the business plans and doing the draws correctly, they wouldn't be giving us new loans right now.
No.
And like you said, we're getting right now we're getting around 315 to 325 spreads with these debt funds. And then we're buying a strike rate at 175 or 150, which means that our max rate is 475. But yeah, no, I agree with what you said, Julie. I think the numbers you said are accurate. And I think even Freddie and Fannie right now, we did 2 Freddie floater deals last year in the third quarter because the debt fund market just dried up. We closed both of them in September last year. So I don't have a good pulse on that market. It's been a year,
Yeah.
but I've heard even they're contracting with a lot of borrowers,
Sure.
right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I think it's difficult, to get financing right now if you don't have experience as an operator. And
Yeah.
to be
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So, Zach, if somebody wanted to talk to you or invest in your deals, what is the best way to reach out to you or to kind of figure out what you got going on?
Yeah, no, thanks so much for taking the time. Thanks, Julie. You guys can just shoot me an email, Zach, ZACH at rise48equity.com. If you're interested to learn about more about what we're doing, or if we can help with anything. So just shoot me an email, Zach at rise48equity.com, and happy to help however we can.
Thank you so much, Zach. The very compelling information, and you're transparent. And you know what? We're going to be watching. We're going to be watching your success. You've got a lot of work ahead of you to manage what's going on with the markets. There is light at the end of the tunnel. We just don't know when that is. So appreciate you joining us tonight.
No, thanks so much. I really appreciate everybody. Thanks for having me, and good luck to everybody.